for joining me at TMI Tuesday. Well, climax of the show, looking at the discussion we have, which is on funding 2019 election. We're just 7 months away from now. I have very distinguished guests with me. At the extreme left, I have a public affairs analyst, and he's no one else but Osagie Godsent Erunse. Many thanks for coming, Osagie.
My pleasure. Good morning, viewers.
I hope you had a sweat time coming here.
Yeah, it was, though it was a little bit drizzly.
Oh, was it traffic? There wasn't traffic?
Just light traffic.
Okay.
Really.
And next,
thanks to the Obaseki police.
Okay. Next, I have a journalist and also a political analyst, Ohio Radio Ehimekwe. Many thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. You know I'm your usual customer.
Yeah. All right, so we're looking at funding 2019 general election has been on, and this whole issue. Just yesterday, we heard about the pronouncement by the spokesperson of the House of Representatives talking about the closure or the cancellation of the reconvening meeting. What do you make of this? Do you see this as a development that will help in tackling issues?
Let me begin by saying that it was actually expected. Electioneering funding is something that no one is going to contest with, okay? For the bodies involved in managing our electioneering process, they have to be well funded to go through, okay? But I think the bone of contention is the issue of interest here, all right? It's not the way forward, but I, in my own view, also think that the executive arm of government should justice in. Okay, the problem with the House of Representatives and Senate is about the fact that their constituency allowance have to be tampered with. That is a critical issue. Okay, now I don't want us to subject it to discussion on whether the constituency allowance is actually used or not. You know, a lot of people have different thoughts about that. But the issue is that there is something about personal interest in politics. Okay, you want to take mine, you want to have mine in order to be able to secure your own head. Because to many of the legislatures, their constitutional allowance is the only allowance they have to be able to gain name, gain recognition, because they're also praying for election. Okay, so that is the critical bone of contention. Where this variant bill is coming from, where it's going to be taken from. Okay, no one is arguing with the fact that election has to be done. The agencies involved has to be sponsored, as in fund has to be made available. But there are a lot of critical issues surrounding that too. Because one of the things to look at is why the late allotment of fund for the election processes.
Yes.
Because this is actually, it's outrightly late. This thing is coming late. If you, let me take you a little bit down memory lane. If you look at before the 2011 election, by 29, the INEC, as it were, already presented their budget. By 2010, they were already 90% funded. Then if you also look at the 2015 election, by 2014, INEC said they were already substantially prepared for the election. But yet, few months or few weeks to that date, they still had to clamor for more time. The election had to be shifted and all of that, okay? To procure the various materials, the ballot papers, you know, and all of that needed for election, you need a couple of good time. You know, averagely it takes about 6 to 7 months, not even 4 months.
Like what the INEC leadership said, Mahmoud Yakubu said 4 months.
It won't be enough. You know, there's a lot of issues, because we can't just expect that, you know, people will just come up and decide when to do things. Nigeria, as this time in the globe, ought to have some level of sanity coming from the angle of our executive, okay? Because we cannot shy away from the fact that the executive arm of government show that they were not so ready and organized towards this.
Okay, you speak about the executive arm of government.
Yes.
It was submitted in July.
Okay.
And was it not expected that, being that you said it came late, like what Nigerians are also sharing in that opinion, was it not expected that the National Assembly should hit the ground running, looking at it critically in order for it to be passed?
Don't forget
why that gap, why that delay, knowing full well that they were going on a break to reconvene resume in September 25.
Okay.
Wasn't it also a responsibility on the side of the National Assembly?
Yes, it was. You have a point there, but you also have to realize, Philip, that everything has due process. Okay, and besides, why we should also ask ourselves, why did the executive arm of government have to send this funding bill at that time when they are aware that in no distant time the legislature are going to go on a long vacation? That's another symposium discussion. But the point is, there have also been a lot of underground fights. That's the reason why I said politicking in Nigeria is all about self-interest. Okay, at the detriment of the commoners. I'm going to come there because plus or minus, take it or leave it, this constituency money they are asking for from the senators and the legislatures, yes, the rep,
which would go up over 160 billion.
Yes, over 160 billion.
Yes.
Who are those that are going to benefit from the constituency projects? They are the commoners. Part of that body is supposed to go into health.
Yes.
That is, if the legislators are sincere in executing this constituency project, part of that money are supposed to be used to provide education, water, and etc. Because my problem about
so it's like the people is now being deprived of
yes,
this by that.
It's an issue. It's an issue. I was in a public symposium, and that was one issue that, you know, in a town hall meeting, so to speak, organized by one of these NGOs. And you know, one of the things that the commoners were saying is they want to feel government. All right. Plus or minus, I know people out there may say, okay, even if you give them this money, I mean the legislature, and they will not really use the money. But the point is, who owns that money? My problem with the present government is we are always asking the commoners, the ordinary Nigerian, to be ready to pay sacrifice.
Okay.
But how many sacrifice have our political actors, our political elite pay for the survival of this country?
Thank you. I'll come back to you.
All right.
But now to Okai Radia, we'll be looking at development. And the spokesperson of the House of Representatives, Abdurazak Namdas, said it categorically that they never were yet to convene a date. Now, on that side, he said that. But on the other side, we have still this aspect of the gale of defection and the fear that the Senate leadership could be removed. What do you make of all of this?
Yeah, you see, first of all, I put it to you that the whole thing is mischief. Ab initio, the executive, they are not sincere. That's the executive said they are not sincere. The legislators, they are also there. Many of them not sincere too. You see, there's a game of suspicion. I am suspecting you, you are suspecting me. So there's no trust among them.
Yeah.
So it's game of suspicion.
Yeah.
First of all, the mischief is, why should the executive, knowing that the parliamentarians will go on recess, decide to wait for all this time to do?
Yeah.
And I tell you about to come and approve supply 245 billion, 0.25. Then security.
We have 242 billion.
242.
Okay, 242.
Yes, yes,
At the end, the security there is just 53 billion. It's not a rubber stamp. The people will take. It's not. You are not giving them the paper. Just sign it.
I have to investigate.
They will investigate it. They will debate it. They will exhort it. And we are just giving it to them. There's a mischief. They know what we are doing. I'm coming. So what I'm saying next is that we are all being deceived. Is the more you see, the less you know. Is the more you know, the less you see. Because the system is not pure. There's no sincerity. The president, the executive knows that people will going on research. You waited all through.
Yes.
Until a few months time, you say go and do it. And they say what we do now. Because even if they reconvene today, they are not going to. They are not going to rubber stamp it. Okay. It will still be sent to. Certain area will be sent to a different committee to look at, and that will take about a month.
Yeah.
They will come back again, reconvene, and come and debate it. It's budget. Budget is a paper of intention. So they have something they have in mind. Well, maybe at the end of the day, you begin to see that people, the man will just say, we will spend the money like that. He has been doing many things with impunity. But remember too, that Nigerians, this is the only country I've seen that are not going to war. You are spending money as if you are in war.
Yeah, in war.
Why you do 53 billion? This is a system, and if you look at from the Abidisho, from the onset, we have spent about 25% of our budget, of our expenditure, have been on this security. The other time we went to buy planes without due recourse to the National Assembly, he went away with impunity. When people protested, hoodlums took over. The other every segment you are seeing spending on security. because we are used to the system. It doesn't even mean anything to the Nigerians anymore. So what we are saying, that is on one side. On the segment of defection and counter defection, I think I've always, like I postulated several times, is the best system for Nigeria. Because if you are in government and we are seeing that you are corrupt, oh, this man is very corrupt, he has done this, he has done that, then tomorrow you are out of that government, then the new government is probing you sincerely. We are happy because you are bring those money. So if the new government knows that you probe the past one and you subjected it to ridicule, you also know that when you are living there, the same brew will be used for you. So with time, in the turbulence of this cycle, of this vicious cycle, we might get purity. So the idea of saying, oh, don't probe, let them probe themselves. If it's Okarede that is guilty, if he's found guilty, probe him and still jail him.
Yes.
But if it's Philip, jail him.
Yes.
So with time, in that game, we will get purity. So if tomorrow our children, other people are coming, so but this game is no longer attractive. I thought I have some billions. If I go and spend these billions, I enter their car, where would I recoup them? If I try to recoup them, I will end up in jail. I better not go. Until we make the system very unattractive, we cannot get anywhere.
You said you spoke about the presidency, like trying to blame the presidency over late submission of that request for environment.
Yes.
Are you not also, won't it be fair to also say that the National Assembly share in that blame? Because as at the time it was submitted, they were supposed to know that it was of great national importance. Shouldn't they have shelved the recess or the break so that in order to tackle that matter first?
You know, if you treat somebody with disrespect, respect begets respect. Disrespect begets disrespect.
At the detriment of national interest?
Wait, listen. You know that you are supposed to submit this budget at so time. You dismiss them with a wave of the hand. I say, what would they do? Have I not been doing it with impunity before? So they can't do anything, just give it to them. I say, okay, the only way I can bring you to book, I can arrest your attention, is to tell you that I have an authority over certain things. Then go ahead now. Although he has been going away with so many impunity, with disregard to the Constitution, let him go ahead now. Let's see what happens. So what I'm saying in essence is that if the National Assembly, you know already, the relationship becomes so polarized, so poor, suspicion. How you follow me? If you said something just now, that if the National Assembly has said, okay, let's take, these people are planning, they want to impeach me, they want to impeach us, they want to destroy the National Assembly. That's what they are plotting. You know, they said they are one. I have agents there. You have agents in mind. So if that's what they are planning, I really don't say no, say happy. For what happened, look at the way the DSS went to invade the National Assembly. They said they want to remove it. Look at some of them like Omar Gege say that we will use every opportunity to ensure that we remove Saraki. Okay, if you are threatening that, come and remove it now. We are not convening. Okay, we are not convening. So what we are saying is that there is already a bad blood. There is already suspicion, and it came in the mix of this. And this idea that is in a quantum, and we see ourselves in a very sorry state.
Thank you, Okarede Ahimefuna. Thank you, I'll come back to you, but funding 2019 election, well, such upheavals, you could say topsy-turvy, you could say a roller coaster ride, all of this. But we'll look at this again, and but that will be after this break. To stay with me.
TMI, every opinion counts.
Great to know you're there still on TMI Tuesday. While the break was on, I had the opportunity to be joined by Comrade Tony Era, a journalist and also a public affairs analyst. Many thanks for coming.
Good morning.
Looking at what has been on, funding 2019 election, there's this great challenge of the cancellation of the reconvened meeting which was supposed to hold today in the National Assembly. What do you make of this development?
Well, I think it is very unfortunate that things are not going the way it should go, because what we are really talking about, that it was unable to hold today, or it was thwarted, has to do with the fact that the people will still be lacking behind greatly when it has to do with getting the reward for the democracy that we say we practice.
So it seems the National Assembly is thwarting that?
Well, with whatever, I wouldn't say it's wholly the National Assembly. But when the process that is supposed to be a process that is supposed to be procedural, by the time the process becomes mechanical, a situation where it now becomes a brick, a dig dong,
yes,
where the executive and the legislature now have to clash. I think that is what always results. And I think it is not really healthy for our democracy.
But shouldn't the National Assembly put national interest first by reconvening quickly and tackle this?
But the
why
issue,
the break?
The issue
why
is
the
that
continued
if the National Assembly
from the meeting?
If the National Assembly is going to reconvene when under a normal situation, you cannot see them postponing such a thing or even thwarting the effort as it should be. I think it has been, like I always say, is that things are not done the way things are supposed to be done. And because things are not supposed to be, things are not done the way they are supposed to be done, things like that always result. I can see a meddlesomeness.
Okay, but there's this impression that the gale of defection and the challenge that the Senate leadership could be affected if they reconvene could be the reason for this too.
Well, yes.
Is that not is that not a personal interest which
it's not a matter
which not supposed to be?
It's a matter of so far to say not only personal interest, collective interest, and systemic failure. Yeah. Because if you have a situation where the House of Assembly should go its full course, because they too have timetable for every other time. It is not when there's trouble in the National Assembly and all that they have to break away. So what we are saying is because of the undue meddlesomeness, the undue interference of the executive, and that is what is putting us in the mess we find ourselves, because we know that without budgetary allocation or discussions that has to do with the welfare of the people will not move forward, and that is what we are saying. And I think it is not healthy for our political development. Okay. It is not healthy for the people. It is not healthy for the institutions, and it is not healthy for the principal players themselves. Yeah. Because if for so many years ahead, they cannot even plan for an election that they have no knowledge about, that all the budgetary allocations and all that should be part of the entire budget. So what are we talking about? Right. So I see a situation where everything that has to do with budgetary of elections and even the running of the state, payment of salaries and all that is done at ad hoc basis, and it is not good. And we all know that when things are done in ad hoc basis, as it is now, it gives them an opportunity to loot the fund that is supposed to be meant for the Commonwealth and for the good of the people.
Thank you. Well, back to you, Osagie Godsent. Yeah. The whole impression, the whole rumored plans by some APC senators to impeach the Senate President Bukola Saraki and his deputy, don't you see this as still playing out for the reason why they are still unable to reconvene?
Yes, it's part of it. But even before the Saraki issue came up, there have been issues. The executive and the legislature have been at loggerhead, fighting one another in a way. Okay, so it's part of the issue. You can't rule that out. But what the Senate must do and the House of Representatives is to ensure that INEC is funded and the other relevant agencies.
Yes, because from the look of things, don't you see it as like having a parochial interest? Placing parochial interest above national interest?
The truth is, we must call a spade a spade. We must blame the executive arm of government for this ineptitude. Because take it or leave it, the Nigeria situation is like, it's like a film trick to so many of us observers. Because in the first place, you keep on seeing this astronomical, increase of fund for sponsoring election every year. Yes. In fact, there was a research I did, and it was discovered that other Africa neighboring countries spend just 10% of what Nigeria allots for elections. So we keep on seeing this game of more money and more money and more money. Granted, right from for a very long time, even up to now, there have been this tussle between both arms of government. But we must be able to call the executive arm of government to realize due process. There are things you can't rush at. What happened with the 2018 budget? This same money you are talking about would have been put in the 2018 budget? And are you also aware that part of the fund for this 2019 election, part of it is going to come from the 2019 budget,
which has not been prepared.
Which has not even been prepared. So what are we talking about? We are in a government that is disorganized. It's sad to say, but that is how it is, because the House of Assembly must do the needful, okay? But the government must be able to, the executive government must be able to justice in. The bone of contention is the environment bill, the money, where is it coming from? Okay, now there are other sources. We have been talking about looted fund, for example, okay? Now, if the executive arm is ready to say, okay, we need so and so money, let's take it away from the constituency allowance, I'm sure that the House of Assembly are going to sit down and give it a consideration or a thought. In Nigeria, we are all selfish. It's sad to say. Everybody cares about his own, and it doesn't matter what happened to the commoners, because the people at the receiving end, the victims are the commoners, the woman at the rural area, that, like I said earlier on, that is supposed to benefit from that constituency project. The politicians don't care who is affected. Another thing you must see with this is, with the trend of events, especially in the political sector in Nigeria, you will also notice that some honorable members of the Assembly see it as a calculated attempt to also tarnish their image. They see it as a calculated attempt by the executive arm of government to make Nigerians feel that they are the hindrance to the development of our democracy. So there are a lot of things just jumbling up beneath the ground. But the House of Assembly must do the needful, but the executive arm has to begin to think on other alternative sources of money. Because for me personally, if you look at the over 160 that they are asking the House of Assembly members to bring from their constituency allowance, that is one serious bone of contention. Even the chairman of the public account of the Senate said it before now, and it's going to be a serious issue when that bill was in the House. Rowide, he said it before now that there was going to be a serious issue. Because who wants to give his money?
Okay, let's look at the aspect where you made a punchline by saying that the astronomical increase. Yeah. Looking at 2015 election, which got about 108 billion,
yeah.
And now we have 242 billion, which is over 150% increase. Now, do you see it justified?
See, my problem is,
because the INEC chairman said that the 2019 election will be the best ever, and so this money needs to reflect to make sure that performance is the best ever. Do you see that as justifiable?
Let me just say that apart from this budget for this 2019 election, even in the past, none of the budget for our electioneering process have ever been justified, because the INEC is not an independent body. So, and just let me veer off a little bit. Just recently, what is on the news now is about the buying of votes and all of that. The INEC is completely under the control of the executive arm of government.
So that will greatly affect the performance.
The astronomical increase in our electioneering process, sponsoring the various agencies involved in election, is also a signal to corrupt tendencies, to corruption. Because I just told you, most of our neighboring African countries spend 10% of what Nigeria allots for election. Now just imagine, just a state election, you have to send 30,000 security personnel. Now what are the attendant costs? Some of these things we are involved in. I'm not saying security is not necessary. Neither am I saying that, the DSS and what have you, they are not necessary. But what I'm saying is, all of those money at the end of the day is only going to, most of them is going to enter the personal account of somebody.
Okay, let me pause it there. Okay, yeah. Let's look at the increase in costs. 2015, just opposite with that of the present request by the president, 242 billion. Isn't it justifiable?
Yeah, before I go into that,
yes,
let me correct one notion, saying national interest. Jesus Christ said, love your neighbor as yourself, not more than yourself. When it comes to when you are selling trap for me, because I have national interest, I should forget about, you want to impeach somebody, you are hurting me, you want to undo me, and you are setting traps around me, because of national interest, I should fall into that trap. I said there's no love between the
So are you not saying that what takes priority should be personal interest in that, because you don't want to fall into that trap? Are you not supposed to be, are you not representing, no, in this part of the world, there's this impression that we hold on to power tenaciously. Now, if the heat becomes too strong, what is wrong in resigning?
Would
that not make you more honorable?
What I am telling you, you have to be alive, Philip, to serve ITV. If you are not alive, you cannot serve ITV. So the person, he has a mission. I was sent to Senate, I was sent to reps to go and do this particular thing. And you are coming from nowhere to come and give me some hindrance? I will have to survive. It's a battle of survival. You are talking about camping at the camping. When the same group of people decamped to APC, there was no sin. But now they are going back to where they came from, it's not a sin. You are fighting them. We have to fight around it. Because I told you just now that until this kind of, we begin to pass this fire, if we continue to fight ourselves, there will be perfect peace. The America we are seeing today, they don't just get to be America. They pass through a series of sins that we are seeing. So talking about the astronomical...
Are you trying to say that they pass through what we are passing through now?
Even worse.
Okay.
Even worse. If in the First Republic we are using chairs to fight in the Western House of Assembly, how many years ago? More about 50 years ago. Then what are you like? We have not improved.
You seem to justify it.
Yes. Because we have to, the only way I have to exert myself is to use everything constitutionally. Is it the person that doesn't even believe in constitution that I should respect? I'm not promoting anarchy. A man that doesn't even believe in constitution, doesn't care whether he's preaching the constitution, he doesn't care for any person. I should respect him. Otherwise, I'm not helping the nation.
Will it not be wrong for you to say that? Because looking at all of this, there is this tussle, the near-war relationship between the presidency and the National Assembly. So they have to fight it out, like you said, to sustain their positions.
What do you say now?
So when you said a man who does not have respect for the Constitution,
let me tell you.
Will it not be wrong to say that?
No. Let me tell you. The Constitution is there. It's the document that binds two of us together. If a man breaches the Constitution, what happens? Then that is an impeachable offense. If you mention anything impeachable offense now, that man committed an impeachable offense, there will be rallies of certain part of the country. Is it not normal? Somebody that went to spend the public money without due process. There's somebody that say, why? Tell us how you spend this. You send some hoodlum to one week from here at the airport to kill him, and you think we should remain like that? We are not in a state of anarchy.
Do you have the facts or evidence to show that they sent hoodlums? Because what you are saying now, you are
journalists, we live over this.
But I'm not saying what you are saying now is your opinion, because
I'm not saying your opinion, it's my opinion.
Yes, because you do not have the facts or evidence to show that it came from the presidency.
The police commissioner and the governor, and they said they are investigating it. Till now, you will not see the light of day. Anyway, come back to the astronomical increase their budget. Yes. Budget is nothing but the paper of intention. I hope you follow me. It's a paper of intention. The one is not just there, but it's a paper of intention. There's already, I told you just now that there's already a mischief, both in the planning and what you want to execute with it. The man knows, the executive knows that if I give them so time, there will be crisis, they won't be able to do it. He said to throw the kite. And the National Assembly has said, okay, even if they want to consider that your national interest, quote unquote, but this man is setting a trap for me to destabilize me, to ensure that I'm humiliated politically. I must fight for survival. So the essence we are saying, the executive ought to have been sincere. If they are sincere, then we'll not begin to blame the National Assembly. The National Assembly themselves should be sincere to know that this man has some good sincerity. After they try to convene, they did not convene the leadership of the National Assembly. What happened? You say, okay, the Nigerian public will say, oh, you didn't do this, national interest, quote unquote, in your words. Yeah. They said, okay, let us convene. They called the leadership. What now happened? The DSS too now took over. And they started messing. They could have killed any person that day. Is that the definition of national interest? That in national interest, I said, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, not more than yourself. You don't go and kill yourself because you are doing national interest. It doesn't work. If you are talking about national interest with things like Mandela, things like Murtala Mohammed, people like where one can understand, not the national interest of being selfish. You are killing the country. What do you think that leads to war? It's disagreement. When we disagree in the mahogany table, we will not go to the trench. Then if we now decide to see that we are losing so much there, then we come back to the mahogany table. We settle. So what I am saying in essence is that the executive, their intention is dubious, is suspicious. We don't know where this one will lead us.
Okay, let me pause you there. Thank you. Let me pause you there because let's look at this, Comrade Tony Era, the whole 242 billion requested by the presidency to run 2019 election. And INEC leadership, Mahmoud Yakubu, saying that 2019 election will be the best ever. What do you think are the factors that should be in place to make sure that really is the best ever Does it have to do with increasing the cost of election or other ways?
Well, first of all, I would say it is really appalling, and it doesn't do us well as a nation for figures to just be tumbling up, and never coming down. Because, like we said just now, the last election, 180 billion naira was expended into the election.
108.
108.
Yeah.
108. But this time now, 242. Why the geometric progression? Is it as if...
But don't quickly forget the economy, the very tight situation in the economy. Could that not also be the reason, looking at the inflation?
It's a tight situation in the economy. Does the government in power believe that the economy has tumbled down, and because it has tumbled down, it gives Nigeria a lot of stress, and they will not even agree that the economy has tumbled down, that things have gone up, and because things have gone up, it has gone the other way to affect such that I'm saying.
Okay, but quickly, I said that to say this, yes, because even outside the economic downturn, like we said, yes, looking at the aspect of new innovations, because even the INEC leadership said that there's going to be electronic transmission of results and all that, devices definitely will be procured. Looking at the sophistication of the coming election, it demands more money. Don't you think so?
No, I don't think so. Rather, it's just a conduit pipe through which individuals and cabals now collect the people's money, and without giving any useful service in returns. So let me tell you, for instance, what they are requesting now, it is not about all other areas of expenditure that has to do with INEC. We are just talking about 242 billion naira for an election that is not going to be total. Imagine they are staggered.
What do you mean by not going to be total?
What I mean by that, they are staggered elections where some governors will not even contest, where the governorship election will not even take place. You know what I mean? Okay. If you look at the configuration, there are situations where, for instance, the Edo State election, when it comes to governorship, it's not going to be part of it. Ondo is not going to be part of it. Anambra is not going to be part of it. Ekiti is not going to be part of it, okay, and so on and so forth. And you are bringing such a outrageous figure. I think it's getting too much, because I think our electionary system is becoming too expensive. What we are, the 254 billion billion naira we're talking about now, is not part of the money the political parties have to spend on election. It's not even part of the money.
It's outside that.
It's outside of that. It's
yes,
not even part of the money meant for security. It's not part of the money meant for a lot of other things. What a single election
is for the purpose of repositioning the electoral process. Because we speak more about the issues about not being transparent in terms of figures being communicated. So there is need to make sure that it's more transparent. So that brings in the extra value.
You see, I don't believe in this money illusion. When I talk about money illusion, putting money down and throwing money at a problem.
But is it not right to still give the leadership of INEC benefit of doubt?
No, there's no benefit of doubt.
So that we can juxtapose between their performance and the previous.
If the INEC we have now could have a problem, executing an election in a single state by bringing all the paraphernalia of government where it has to do with security to that place, and that election still failed. Is it the generalized election that we are going to be hoping for? I think there's no cause for hope. And the only cause for hope, I think that we have to do is for people to be meticulous, is for people to be sobered. And I think what the National Assembly is doing is the right thing. Because for every kobo that they say they have to spend, must be investigated before they can endorse it. We have a situation where the last biometrics exercise that was done in Nigeria, about 67 billion naira went into it, right? And that was an exercise for just 1 month. We have a situation where Bangladesh One of the, no, I mean,
I'm here to verify that figure,
yes, yes, I mean,
but I think
yes, I know
it's subject to verification.
Yes, that is, I'm correct in what I'm saying. You have Bangladesh, a developing country, just like Nigeria, that has a population that is also close to that of Nigeria. I mean, voters' population. We have a situation where they spent only 20 billion, about 20 billion naira for them to do biometrics for the period of 4 months. Because that of Nigeria was just 1 month. So what are we talking about? And we have a situation where even the big democracies of the world spend less when it comes to election. India, for instance, the biggest democracy of the world, spends about I think about 900 million voters.
Okay, but don't you think that whatever comparison you are making now could also not be justifiable, because we have complex our polity is not just simple. It's been affected by some complex issues.
The complex
that is not in the same faction with other politics.
The complex issues we are talking about,
yes,
now, is the problem we say we have. And let me tell you, if you have democracy, then democracy is a what do I call it? It's a modus. It's a regulator that regulates any system in the world, right? And it is not a phenomenon that is peculiar to a place alone. It's a global phenomenon. So because it's a global phenomenon, and the budgeting indices and the spending indices for political parties, it's always referred to a point. For the instance, the World Democracy Movement monitors spending when it comes to election.
Okay, but you also agree that politics have their peculiarities.
It has their peculiarities.
The American polity, the Indian polity, Nigerian polity, they are not just so the same.
When your peculiarity
yes,
becomes a source of worry, and you don't call it democracy again.
Okay.
And because what we have is, how will I call it? I know when this democracy in 1999 was coming up, a lot of us who came from the pro-democracy movement in Nigeria said that what we Nigerians still needed to do was to do what is called a demilitarization. Because our own politics have been so militarized. Yeah. And because it has been so militarized, we can never get the best. Because this money we are talking about now, it goes to the hands of individuals. But under normal circumstances, and when you have a normal situation, and you sit down and view things the way they are done, we will save a lot of money. For instance, why should Nigeria go for such an expensive election? And why should the money from the Abacha loot that was brought to us, why should it be spent so frivolously? If that money was not spent, or they didn't say they are going to spend the money the way they are not supposed to spend the money. And if we say for such fund, we go into it as a consolidated fund for election, it will be good. But I was still think that the best way out of this is for us to see our elections and make all the plans ahead.
Thank you, Tony Era. Thank you, Tony Era. Thank you, Tony Era. Well, all of this boils down to ensuring that we have a better 2019 general elections. I've been discussing with this great gentleman. Don't forget that you can follow us in this discussion by being on our website at www.itvradionnigeria.com, and also you can like our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/itvradioNG, and of course on our Twitter handle at itvradioNG. Follow us in the discussion, drop your comments, and you can ask your questions, and it could go a long way to also help in shaping the questions we ask the distinguished personalities with me. Well, back to you. I think the pendulum swinging back to you, Osagie Goldson.
Thank you.
We have this whole picture. Like you did say, it's one thing or one of you said that it's one thing looking at the funding of INEC, but also another funding of political parties. Now, there's this provision of the Constitution that says that individuals or a person can financially fund or support candidates or political parties no matter what, but essentially the INEC must screen the books of political parties. And looking at this, a lot of money bags are scared because they are holding their money to their chest. Because if they want to fund a particular party or a candidate, the watchdogs, the EFCC, the ICPC could come chasing them. Do you see this as right for our democracy?
I want to say that the whole electoral process, I mean, both the fund allotted to the INEC and the security agencies and personal spendings and party spendings has to be overhauled. Okay, has to be overhauled. Okay, because the problem, like what you said, there are people that are skeptical about that. Okay, but the problem is that when a government say, don't be involved in corruption,
yes,
and you start sending signals to people, like you are in a way, it brings mistrust. Let me just give you an experience, something that happened some few years ago.
You said like you are in a way. Well, I want to believe that
okay,
that statement is bogus.
Yes,
because
bogus.
whatever you say,
No,
you must be able to
feel-
substantiate
Yes.
with facts.
Yes, you have a point there, but the facts are everywhere. I think you are trying to be economical with the truth and understand your professional ethics, but the truth is that the facts are everywhere. Things are not working in this country. Okay, there is a lot of looting still going on in this country. Let me just give you an example. Something happened with one of the states in this country. Close to election, the government disbursed money through a certain microfinance bank in the name of you want to empower people as part of their tactics to score political points. Then guess what happened at the end of the day? I was close to the corridor, so I'm sure this is, verifiable. At the end of the day, they released some certain outrageous amount to the public that this is what they are releasing for SMEs empowerment. Guess what happened? They made the bank sign for that money. Then they gave them less, far less, and took the SXs on top to fund their own election. One of the states in this country, just recently. So what are you talking about? Anything can happen in the Nigeria political setting. Okay? So, and I also want to say that people are still going to come up, in spite of the fear that they could be indicted, should they sponsor a certain candidate.
Yes, there's nothing wrong if you sponsor, but provided what you are using to sponsor, you got it rightly. Yes, because I think the law is no respecter of persons.
Okay.
No one is above the law.
What is
if you steal any money and you are using it to fund a political party, then you go for it.
What is the
There's nothing wrong there. Don't you think so?
Parameters for judging in the Nigeria situation the money you got rightly? For all we care as young people is about your political affiliation. If your government is in power, whatever you spend is justified, as long as it helps them to remain in power. We are looking at the Nigeria factor. There is, for me, the fight against corruption is not being holistic and it's not sincere. And the evidence are everywhere. We don't have to, overweight this whole issue. The point is corruption is still going to happen with the bogus or the large sum allotted for this election. There are still going to be individuals. Of course, the Constitution provides for that. But you also have to know that there's a problem with enforcement. Okay, how many persons have been prosecuted for overspending or asked to trace the source of his money because he gave for an election? It has only happened in cases where your political party is not in power. We're looking at the sincerity here. We're looking at the honest fight to save Nigeria. We're looking at the concern of our fathers, our politicians, for the average Nigerian. Okay, so I think from our point of view, that has to be checked. Okay, but if we have rules, sorry, before you say something, election now in Nigeria is like a business investment. I mean, election funded by individual companies and all. It's an investment. I can't spend billions of naira securing an election, a position in government,
without getting a return.
Not to recover it when I get into political office. My first mission is to get my money. Let me tell you a case. And just recently, I was involved in some association stuff and organization. I hosted a team of delegates outside the state. And one of the persons that came contested for one of the local government chairmanship position in Lagos. And before he did that, you know what his sponsors did? He made her sign, I will sponsor everything. But all the contracts you will give out, I will sign them. I'll be in charge.
That boils down to corruption.
That is what is happening in the present day Nigeria.
But isn't that the reason this provision is being deployed to ensure that the money bags who perhaps, as allegations could have it, have soiled their fingers in the common patrimony of the people, shouldn't partake or continue in governance? Isn't that a check? And isn't that a credit to the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari?
What I want to say, Phil, is it has always been there. It's not today that constitution was written. It has always been there to check all of these corners and all of that. But has it been enforced? Has it been implemented? That is how you judge sincerity in governance. Okay? Watch what will happen. We are all Nigerians. We are still alive. Let's watch what will happen in 2019 election. You know, nobody is going to question anybody as long as some certain party comes back to power. You know, nobody is going to indict you as long as you belong to me. Look at the defection you were talking about. You know, as long as you are with me, you are corrupt free. But the day you decide to leave me, I will indict you. You know, so this whole game, my concern is the average Nigerian that suffers at the end of the day, because these political actors know what they are doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, what's your bite on this funding political parties and the fear of EFCC and ICPC?
You see, my worries is that there's an assumption that the elites are much more educated and much more informed than the ordinary magistrate. It's wrong. It's a revolution gone wrong. They now know Nigerians. So when you say you are doing it, there are policies, but our policy does not reflect our belief. You see, Jagad came
our
and
policies
said,
don't reflect our belief.
No, but you see, Jagad came and told you that this voting will be the best on earth. It has not happened in the moon. We said, okay. The president Jonathan couldn't vote. His name was not captured. He can't read that. That was what Jagad spent all our lives for. We say, Nigeria comes to the state of Federal. So they always get a clinch whenever an election want to come. This Mohammed, this Yakubu will go. Another person will come. We say, oh, I'm telling you, the process I want to do now is better than the one US has ever done. They look for a clinch to give themselves. Well, let me tell you, the average Nigerian is already having these symptoms. That first, this is a failed government. The election we are facing is already failing.
Can't you posit your point without making such statements?
Yeah, I'm telling you,
because we are part of the government, and if you say it's a failed government, it means we failed. I'm not so we are part of the government. I'm not exonerating myself. So rather than being pessimistic, shouldn't we be optimistic?
Wait. I'm not exonerating myself. Even you that's supposed to set the agenda, you are not sincere. Even with the media, you are not sincere. I'm not saying go and prove that. So wait, I'll come back to that. So we all know ourselves. So what I'm telling you in essence is that what is happening, we just wonder, what grammar will I use? Which is the latest grammar will I put? That's it. Up till now, all these type of things say corruption, anti-corruption, no corruption. You are corrupt free when you are with me. Well, that's what has happened to Akpabio. I don't want to go into certain things that you might be disturbed about. We know what is happening among them. The other way you see, the people more enlightened than some of us who parade and say that we know everything. So what I'm telling you in essence is that this expenditure, can you even say it? Even in the moon or in the sun, under the sun, how will you justify it that times 2 of the election you spent in 2015 is what you want to spend now? How?
It's more than times 2.
It's more than okay, more than times 2. How will you explain it? How will you explain it?
To procure more equipment.
Which equipment?
Have you not to deploy sophisticated devices to ensure that the electoral process is transparent.
To put more of the
Nigerians have been on, we want to have free and fair credible elections.
I like your grammar.
So isn't that in that direction?
Yeah, I like your grammar. I like the way you are framing it. I like the way you are trying to embellish it. But I am telling you, the other body you are talking to knows more about this thing than yourself. I was in a place we were preaching, and I said, after the other, they said, let them bring the money. We are just waiting for them. This house I have not completed. I will complete it then. So this thing, I said, okay, it's now becoming. I said, told my colleague, I said, this is no longer fashionable to say, don't collect money. He said, let's preach it. Collect money, vote your conscience. Because look at the fraud.
But that is not still possible again.
Wait, man.
That is almost impossible now. Because if you collect money, for you to even collect money first, you must be tele-guided to ensure that you vote in the position or for who they want you to vote for before you collect that money. So that is out of.
So I'm very happy that you know much more about this. So there's no you are painting it. You know much more about this corruption. Don't paint it. It's like that. You know. This is why I said you are part of the corrupt system. So what I'm saying in essence is that what we are
to correct the system. We are in it to correct the system to make it clean.
Wait. To make it clean. You are a moderator. You moderate and let us discuss it. So what I'm saying in essence is that the system is so bastardized, so bad now, that your wife doesn't trust you when it comes to election. You don't trust your wife because if you say we are going to vote for this person, you don't know whether he has collected something from behind. I will say let him go. You will go at it. Then you know the first stage of corruption of this election. Why people don't even believe in the election. Naturally, in the Electoral Act and the electoral law, you are told that the point of collecting ballot paper should be separated, should be distant from where you are going to thumbprint. So that even if I collect ballot paper from you, it's secret, it's still secret ballot.
Open secret.
I will go back to a corner and thumbprint. Nobody sees it. But like you have just said, let me assume I'm hearing from you now. You are lecturing us, you are enlightening us that the system is not going to that somebody has to monitor. I used to go to monitor. I was in one primary school where people were exchanging money. And I called the inspector. I said, police, you can go exchanging money to go out. He say, I beg, make you go do your own. Say, you do your own. No, everybody do your own for here. I say, is that your own you are doing? Is that why you are brought here? Okay, what's the way forward? How do we go with it? He said, oh, God, leave me. Now let me you see. Go everywhere, this thing. I came to another police station. Somebody carried the ballot box. I was running. I said, somebody carried the ballot. They pass here.
So that they can arrest.
You know what he told me? He said, oh, God, don't worry yourself. They go bring them back. By sitting down here, they will bring it back. So the system, who do you not trust? To come and bring billions. I am telling you, your president told you that he couldn't buy form when he was contesting. Okay, but the billions he was carrying the plane, he was trotting from here. Have you ever proved it?
Okay, but all of this also leads us to the big question. I think the big question is still begging for answers.
Yes.
How much of answer or the volume of truth can be in that answer? Only God can tell. What is the way forward?
Yeah, the way forward.
How do we tackle this problem?
The way forward, and the only way we can tackle is self-sincerity. Let's be sincere. We are coming here to come out. You see, I'll give you a story of a tortoise and other animals. There was a meeting by the divine spirit. I said by tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, we should assemble at the King Square. The first person to be there will be given a prize. 8 o'clock. Well, what he said now, it's just 12 o'clock in the afternoon. He said tomorrow morning by 8 o'clock, whoever that gets there first will get the big prize. So they all said, okay. Everybody dispersed. The tortoise got up and said, yes, I'm a slow walker. If I wait for that tomorrow morning, I'm sure that I will not get a prize. I will not even be there. They will have finished the whole thing. Then, hare, lion, dog. Then I said, oh, within 3 minutes from here to Ring Road, I will get there. So tortoise set up his journey now. Other people were still dining. He set up his journey now. He walked all through the night. By the morning, by 7 o'clock, he was already at the square. When the game now started,
he was there before others.
You don't understand? I said by noon, 12 o'clock, he started the journey. He walked all through the night. By 8 o'clock, by 7 o'clock, he was already there waiting for them. When the judgment now came, he said, when the lion now came, and the dog, and the hare, how did you get here? He said, be there now. If Jesus has come now, I will have received him before he come. And he got the prize. So what I'm telling you, we should say sincerity. Yes. Let's be sincere. Like I'm telling you, like you told me an information now. I'll take it as an information, if I don't know that it's not possible to go and do secret ballots. Let's be sincere. Be preaching it that is bad. When we begin to hammer, you are setting up the agenda. That's your own.
You've made that punchline thrice now. You've made that punchline twice.
Yeah, me, myself, who is a politician, I was going to say, sacrifice.
Yes.
What I should do, if you want to repair the society, let's make an attempt to repair it. Then I want to do my own. Then the security man, the policeman should now know that this is not life and death. All the things you really acquire in your 30 years as a policeman.
It's a wake-up call.
So you also, if we are sincere with ourselves, let our policies reflect our belief. We might get there. We might get there.
And the leadership is doing its best to rejig that so that sincerity will cut across board.
That's the thing. Not people like Daura. You are bringing people like Daura. You want the nation to give you. Who will even trust the government? When Daura just done what he did. You saw what he said in his house? Although it's an alleged. You saw what the even security special, when they ransack their houses, you are talking of billions. I'm sure in your lifetime you may not count billion. Well, I pray for you because I don't want to count billion. Because I don't want to sleep.
All right, it's all about ensuring that we have probity and not just the billion. Probity.
No,
you can be comfortable with little amount of money as long as you are contented. I think it's contentment.
Help us to preach that. Then I myself as a politician, I will preach the one I believe. There is a civil society person, he will also go to his domain, he go to his constituency and preach it. He will go there to preach it, that what he is doing now, gallivanting from one city to the other, say let us preach probity.
Okay, thank you.
It's not just by looking for a particular clique. You go to dictionary and say, how will I put it? Yakubu. If I subject him to even intellectual, academic, anything, he can't pass my test. You are just looking for a clique. Another person will come tomorrow. Maybe Philip is the next NH chairman we're going to have in the future. You will come with another clique again. Say this system was always practiced in the moon. At the time of Kennedy. But this one I'm telling you now is the path I perfected it.
Thank you.
Let us be sincere.
Thank you very much, Okairedia. Well, the way forward, your perception on this.
Well, first of all, I would like to disagree with my brother and my rival of Okairedia in Mekmen, that we have to go the way of those superpowers. We have to go through what they went through before we can arrive at our destination. I think if you listen to the psychoanalysts, there's something they call psychomotor.
Oh, yeah.
It's a kind of psychology that has to do with your brain structure and how you put yourself together and how you do things.
Organizability.
Yes, what it means. The way you react to issues and the way you get issues right might not be the same with the way I get it right.
Yes.
Vice versa. I think in a race, like what he said, taking the tortoise adaptology, in a race of life, people have their own different kind of steps, the steps they take to reach a common goal.
But we're talking about the one that will be of benefit to all.
The first thing is that who told you that Nigerians, we cannot get it right and even be better than those countries who even practice democracy before us.
Great.
We can get it right if only we know one thing. One, our society is a disorganized society. And the power that be had made it so because they know that when the society is disorganized, they will continue to get the sweat. They will continue to take away our sweat of
common patrimony
and continue to manipulate us. I think the first thing is that I am ashamed to be a Nigerian. The reason why I say I'm ashamed to be a Nigerian is that most Nigerians, they don't know their sense of their personal bearing and collective bearing.
Are you still talking about the poverty of the soul and spirit?
Yes, of course. The poverty of the soul and the spirit. Because if you know yourself, you will know what to do right. Nigerians are indisciplined lot. I remember Tai Solarim of blessed memory. He said every Nigerian is corrupt. I am corrupt. You are corrupt.
It's
relative. He is corrupt. Everybody is corrupt. It's like if I want to go to the tortoise analogy too. It's like the tortoise and all other animals that are mothers coming together. The monkey said, oh, my son is the worst. Because do you know that when I put my son at the back, my son will be stealing with the left hand. The pig said, oh, my own child is the worst. Because when you give my child a cloth, in a little while the cloth will be dirty. So they said so many. Tortoise said, well, of all you have said, my child is the worst. They said, okay, tortoise, we know that your own is always different. Why do you think that your child is the worst? He said, okay, you say your child is a thief. Your child is a liar. Your child is so dirty. But he said, my own child doesn't have the sense of shame. And any child that doesn't have the sense of shame can do all that you have said and do worse. Do Nigerians have the sense of shame?
Thank you. Thank you.
That is a question.
I think we'll pause it there. Thank you very much. And Comrade Tony Era is a civil society activist, but far away from that, is a trained journalist. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And of course, Okairedia He's a trained journalist, a veteran in that position, and we really appreciate your coming.
Thank you so much.
God sent to Sage. Your report in 2 minutes.
All right. First of all, we have to ensure that the INEC is truly independent, because in Nigeria, it is the executive arm that controls the INEC. Then again, we have to enforce the laws that restrict overspendings, both for political parties and individuals in elections, because it's important. When people overspend to gain elective position, they will demand for a return back of all that they have spent. So we have to enforce it. It's not like it's not there, but the enforcement is where the problem is. Then lastly, the electorate has to take responsibility. We have a duty to demand what we want from the government. The reason why tyranny thrives is because of the level of ignorance of the electorate. Currently, I don't know why it's not calling the attention of the government that Nigeria is now rated the poorest nation on earth. It is 7 million Nigerians live below poverty line. Again, I don't know why it's not calling the attention of the present government that education, Nigeria is considered the worst nation on earth in out-of-school children. 10.5 million children out of school, to be precise. I don't know why it's not calling sympathetic attention. We are being given indices, the economy is getting better, yet we can't afford to buy things. The ordinary man cannot buy things in the marketplaces. So
well, we just hope that there will be improvement, and that's the essence of this discussion.
So we must take responsibility,
okay, thank you,
and demand what we want from the government.
Thank you, Osage.
And our vote is one way to do that. Sorry, we must have your voters card and cast your votes.
Thank you. A lot has been said here. Stakeholders have been on it, and a distinguished panelist just said it. Well, following 2019 election, how is it going to be? How is it going to be? Looking like a Herculean task, but it can be done. Well, all of this shows that we must ensure that we participate fully in ensuring that there is probity in governance, and having 2019 election, which we should see as the best ever. That is our dream. That is where we're going towards. Well, pointed to 2019, much has been said, and we'll still continue to hammer on it.